If there's been an ethics violation, is like the college required to contact you, or can the college handle it at the lowest level possible?
Very good question. So if you guys discover an ethics violation here at the college, do you have to call us? No, you don't. In fact, we prefer that you handle it, right? Because that's really where it should be handled. And I would tell people that if supervisors and managers are doing their job, then I don't have one.
So no matter what the violation is, even if it's one of the bigger violations, I mean, it just...
Well, it's a decision that you guys will have to make, right? Is it something really big? Is this something that's going to hit the media? If it's something like that, you probably want to make sure that you take it up to the next level, okay? But if it's something that you can handle internally, then by all means do it. The board expects that, and like I said, they're going to hold you accountable to that. They want you to take care of it. They don't really care how you do it. They just want you to stop the bad behavior, right? So the next thing, conflicts or confidential information. You guys have access to confidential information? Yeah, I think you do. You have access to a lot of information that the public, holds you accountable to keep confidential. The problem with confidential information, we also have a law that says that you have to release information, right? The public disclosure law. So this is one of those rules that you can get in trouble for giving out information, or you can get in trouble for not giving out information, right? So do we have public disclosure people in the room? If you are in a position where somebody's asked for information, what was your name? Get a hold of Suzanne. She is your public disclosure person. She's not only going to keep you out of trouble, but she's going to keep the college out of trouble as well. She knows the college policies and procedures on disclosing information, and she knows the state rules on it as well. So she's going to protect you guys. Don't just be giving out information because you feel like you want to or it's a good idea. Make sure you're above board on that, because this is one of those things that you can get in trouble for giving out information. It's one you can get in trouble for not giving out information. So these are a list. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but this is some of the stuff that we think about as being confidential information. All that personal information, names, dates of birth, phone numbers, addresses, that kind of stuff, banking, accounting numbers, investigative records. Now, investigative records get to be released at some point, right? But the initial stages of the investigation, that stuff's not going to be released, but at some point it becomes releasable. And again, the public disclosure officer knows the rules on that. Trade secrets, if you're in contracts and you're dealing with companies, you might have some proprietary information about that company, and so that information is also protected. Test and interview questions. This doesn't really apply to giving answers to tests for your students. This kind of applies only to state workers, right? So if you're in you're the person that's hiring somebody, or maybe on an interview panel, and you have the questions, make sure you kind of protect those. Don't give them out to the people that are participating, unless everybody's going to get them, right? Some interviews, the process is we're going to give all the applicants the questions beforehand, so they have some idea how to answer them before they get there. That's okay. You can do that. But if the process is not to do that, then don't give those questions out to anybody, or answers out to anybody. We good there? Confidential information? It's not one that we see. In fact, this is one of violations that we very rarely see. But on the other hand, this is not. We see this one quite a bit. This is special privilege. And this is a real easy one to kind of get a grasp on. If we're doing something to give somebody a foot up in the process, or if we're getting something only because of what we do for the state, then that's a special privilege, okay? We can't do that. So here's an example. We had this facility manager who worked for DSHS in Tacoma. He was the manager of I think it was about a 5-story building, state building in Tacoma, and underneath that building was a parking garage, a 2-level parking garage. And this guy was a car enthusiast. He liked refurbishing old cars. He would paint them and do upgrades to the motors and stuff. But he couldn't keep all those old cars that he was working on in his neighborhood because, well, he lived in a pretty nice neighborhood, and they didn't want a bunch of old junk cars laying around in the yard or in the street. So he had access to the parking garage on the lower levels. So what do you think he did with all those old cars? Yeah, so down in the second level of the parking garage, they had some old, not being used temporary fencing that just happened to be down there. So he pulled that temporary fencing out, and he kind of cornered off about 10 parking stalls there, and he parked his 6 cars and a couple motorcycles in that stall. And he did this for about 5 years before anybody ever told us about it. But that's would you guys agree that's kind of a special privilege? The only reason he was allowed to do that is because he had, in his position, he had access to do that. Nobody would question, right? The security people thought it was perfectly okay because, hey, that's the facility manager doing it. If anybody can do it, he can, right? We have another one that's coming, so I won't mention names on this one, but very similar. We had office manager, the office chief, the head person in an office building for a state agency, and the security guard, when she would leave in the morning to go out for meetings and stuff, he would put a cone in her parking spot and kind of secure her parking spot so nobody else would park in it. Right? And it wasn't a designated for her parking spot, but he would do that because, you know, she's the boss and I'm trying to help her out, and so he would do that. Is that a special privilege? Okay. We have no jurisdiction over the security guard, right? Because he's not a state employee, but we do have jurisdiction over the office manager. So this is one of those things, you can get in trouble for getting a special privilege, and you can get in trouble for giving one. So she was getting a special privilege, and this is another thing that may have been going on for years before somebody finally said, you know what's not fair, even though she's the boss, that she gets the parking spot right in front of the door every day. You know, she's not the first one there, but there's always a cone there keeping other people out of it. She wouldn't put the cone in there. That was the security officer's job, right? But she always accepted it, and she never went to the security guard and said, why is there a cone in that parking spot every day? Or maybe there's a cone in there, I got to park someplace else. She knew that cone was there for her to park in for. So that's special privilege. Any questions or comments on special privilege? Okay. You guys as state workers, some people might think you get special privileges in some areas. You get some discounts, right? You guys know that if you have a personal cell phone, that whoever your carrier might be, if it's Verizon, I think it's about a 17% discount on your personal phone. You guys aware of that? And I think all of them have some discount like that for state workers. So if you're not taking advantage of it, do, because the board says that's okay. Okay? It's a broad group discount. The board says that as long as that discount is given to all state employees, and it's a business decision by the carrier of your phone company to allow that to happen, that is not a special privilege, and you guys need to take advantage of that if you want to. Okay? That's a broad-based group. There's a couple different groups that we're going to talk about. So the next group is called Occupational Group, and it's not quite as broad as everybody that works in the state, but it's broad in the sense that it covers everybody in a specific occupation. And I'll give you my example. When I worked for the Washington State Patrol, I was in the Occupational Group as a trooper. So in the late 1990s, early 2000s, State Patrol transitioned from the 357 to the Beretta firearm, and so Beretta offered all troopers, the occupation trooper, a 10% discount if they wanted to purchase a backup weapon through Beretta. Okay, so the question is that a special privilege offered to troopers? It's not offered to everybody in the Washington State Patrol, and it's not offered to all state workers, so is that a special privilege offered to troopers? You might think it is, but it's not, because the board has said, no, we're going to call that an occupational group. It's not as broad-based as everybody, but it's a broad-based, and everybody that's in that occupational group gets the discount. And it's really, what it comes down to really, though, it's a business decision by Beretta, or whatever the company is that's giving the discount, to give that discount, right? They want to get business, so they're giving somebody a 10% discount to try to get them to do some business. Cabela's and some of the other outdoor stores like that does the same thing for folks that work in the Department of Ecology and Department of Natural Resources, those folks that work outside in the weather. If you work for those folks, agencies, and you work in that field, you go to Cabela's, they'll give you a discount on outdoor clothing, rain gear, and that kind of stuff, boots, but you have to show that you're a state employee in that occupation. And then the last one that we talk about is employee group, and it's probably the one that affects folks that work in colleges and universities the most. You guys are in an employee group, and I don't know, do you guys have sporting teams like football, basketball, baseball teams up here? Do you get discounts to those game tickets as employees? Do you? And that's only offered to you, right? It's not offered to everybody. It's only offered to the folks that work here at the college. So that's an occupational group, and the board said that's okay too, as long as everybody that works here at the college gets that discount. It has to go to everybody, from the president down to the person who sweeps the halls. As long as you work here and you want to buy a ticket, you get that 10% discount. And the U is a big one for this because they give tickets to Husky football games, or basketball games, baseball games. And if you work at the U, you get a discount to go to those events, okay? And I think it's 10% or something along those lines. But again, that's okay. That's an occupational group or an employee group. What about, let's say that your agency or the college is going to fly you over to Spokane to attend a conference. And when you guys go to conferences, you pay for it yourself and then get reimbursed. Is that how it works for most of you?
Yeah, so it's half and half.
Because they negotiate through the state contract and get flights for you. So if you get reimbursed on your credit card, let's say you use your credit card for the hotel or whatever expenses that may come up other than the flight, and you earn some type of reward points or points on your credit card like air miles or whatever. Do those air miles belong to you, or reward points belong to you, or they belong to your agency? Your agency's paying for it though, right? Because they're going to reimburse you for it. So who do those points belong to? They belong to you right now. Right? Only because folks down in OFM haven't figured out a way yet to bring that money back into the state coffers. They've already figured it out with the airline tickets, right? Because they've already got a good handle on how to deal with the airline tickets themselves. And at some point, they may come up with an economical and feasible way to use that back into the state system. Right now, they don't have that, and so you get to keep those points, okay? It's the same way with if you use, when I go on business trips for the state, I like staying at Holiday Inn, and we get Holiday Inn. We have a credit card that has Holiday Inn rewards points on it. So if I stay 2 nights at a Holiday Inn, I get a 3rd night free. So does that 3rd night belong to me if the state's paying for the 2 nights before that, or does it belong to the state? It belongs to me. It's basically the same thing. They really have no way to get that 3rd free night back into the state funds yet, so I get to keep that for now. Okay, at some point that may change, but for now it's good.
Does that also apply to the smaller things like the shopper card, like a Fred Meyer Safeway? I mean,
that's a good question. We've had a couple, in the last 6 months, we've had 2 calls on it. I'll talk about them both real quick. We had a lady that was, she worked for an agency in Olympia, and she needed to go down to Safeway to buy we were having an afternoon meeting. She needed to pick up some food and some coffee or refreshments for the meeting, and she was going to use her state credit card, but she wanted to use her Safeway rewards card to the state get a little bit of a discount, and she would get some reward points. So what do you think we told her? That it was okay. Yeah, we said, sure, that's okay. Now, so think about that for a second. Then about a week later, as it were, we'd had a person from one of the colleges up here, and hopefully it wasn't this one, but they from their athletic department, they wanted to go to REI, and they had about $10,000 worth of money that they wanted to spend on athletic equipment from REI. Okay, and they wanted to use their REI rewards card along with that. Now, what do you think we told them? We told them no, they couldn't do that. Why do you think we told them no? Because they're getting a real benefit back, right? They're going to get a couple $100 back maybe in reward points or whatever. Where the Safeway person, and she might get a $10 gas bump on her card or something, and the state's getting some type of discount as well. So it really comes down to, is there a real benefit that you're getting from that? And in the REI case, yes, there's a real benefit that you're getting. In the Safeway card, not so much. So it kind of goes case by case, but that's kind of the low level and the higher level.
If the REI card would have given the state a discount.
It could have, but then you have to look at, okay, just because I have an REI card, is that the lowest price, or could I go someplace else and get a better deal? But only because I have the REI card, I'm going to go there and buy it. And so there's a lot of different, and that's one of those perception things, right? If you're doing that, people looking at that are, yeah, that doesn't seem right. And a lot of times when we talk about ethics violation, it is that just the appearance of a violation that could sometimes create a violation, right? If you're doing something that people have to look at and wonder if it's good or bad, then sometimes that could, at the very least, initiate a complaint. So you got to be very careful. Okay, let's see what else we got. Gifts. You guys want to talk about gifts? Do you guys get gifts? I see some head shaking. We don't get a lot of complaints about gifts anymore, and I don't know what the deal is, why we don't, other than the fact that, you know, it could be a couple things. Once we're a little bit wiser about what kind of gifts and who we can take gifts from. Maybe that's the case, or maybe it's the case that we're just not being offered gifts anymore, like maybe we used to. But regardless of, we don't get a lot of complaints. But we still get a lot of concern from folks like you about how to deal with these gifts that we may be getting, right? So we want to spend a little bit of time and talk about what a gift is, who's giving you the gift, and if you can take it or not. So this is what the board, it's a general description of what a gift is. A gift can be anything of economical value. It can be a gratuity. It can be a favor. It doesn't really have to be something substantial. If you're getting a special favor, that could be a gift as well. So there's 3 different rules that we have to understand about gifts. And so we're going to talk about the first rule. And this is kind of the overarching rule. Okay, you have to get through this rule to get to any of the other rules. And so this rule is really simple. It says that no matter who is giving you the gift, no matter what the gift is worth, if the only reason they're giving you the gift is so you could do something or not do something as part of your official duty, you can't take the gift. You guys with me there? If the gift is being given to you because they want you to either do something for them or not do something, revoke a permit or something like that, that's the reason why you're getting the gift, then you can't take the gift regardless of how much it's worth or regardless of who's giving it to you. That's rule number 1. The second rule that we have is we do have a $50 gift rule. So for the most of us, and for most situations, this is the rule that we have to kind of watch, right? Is a gift worth more than $50? Okay, if it is, we can't take it. If that person's given us more than one gift in the course of a year, is a combination of those gifts worth more than $50 because it's a combination for the whole year, right? So if I get a lot of little gifts, I may not be able to take the last one because it put me over the $50 mark, right? But there are some exceptions to this. So some of the exceptions. Items from your families are not considered gifts except when?
Benefit or...
Except if they intend to influence you to do something or not do something, right? Hopefully our family members aren't going to do that, but that may be the case. You may be in that situation where one of your family members wants to give you a trip to Hawaii to either do something or not do something for them. So gifts from your families for the most part are considered non-gifts. Food at hosted receptions. You guys know what hosted receptions are? It's not breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not a face-to-face a meal with somebody. It's a gathering of folks in a room, many different views and ideas of what's being talked about, and that's a hosted reception. You're sitting around, you're eating food, you're drinking beverages and that kind of stuff. That's a hosted reception. It's not breakfast, it's not lunch, it's not dinner, and you're not face-to-face with the person that you're negotiating a contract with. Promotional items like the pin that I gave you, that's a promotional item. You can keep those. They're not considered gifts. Ball caps, t-shirts, mouse pads, all those things, cups that have logos on them, company logos on them, those are all considered promotional items and you can keep those. They're not considered gifts. The key thing you want to remember though is cheap. It has to be cheap. Take for instance the pin. Very cheap, not something you would go out and spend your own penny on, but since somebody's going to give it to you for free, you take it, right? That's a promotional item. If Microsoft wanted to give you a yacht and plop it out in the harbor out there and call that a promotional item, the board's going to look at that and say, that's not a promotional item, that's a gift. Okay, so promotional item, cheap, and you can keep those things. Gifts between state workers, so you guys can exchange gifts amongst each other, and those are not considered gifts. So if you want to have a Christmas party where you exchange gifts and whatever the value you set on that, it can be over the $50, it can be whatever value you want it to be, right? Not considered gifts. Now with that said, supervisors be very leery of receiving gifts from your subordinates. Now it's okay to receive gifts from your subordinates on those normal things that we think about gifts, birthdays, Christmas time when we're having our group gatherings, exchange of gifts, those are okay, okay? But if you're getting gifts from your subordinates for all times of the year, and maybe it's about that time where their evaluations are coming due and you're getting gifts from folks, you just have to be leery. Maybe you shouldn't take those gifts, okay? Okay, and it may be a good idea as a supervisor or manager not to take gifts from the people that work for you, okay? Because of not of the gift rule, because the gift rule says it's okay, but there's a conflict of interest rule that you might be getting in trouble with, okay? So supervisors, you kind of have to play it by a little bit different rules with this. Yes, question.
Does that also apply for like family? So if a coworker is trying to give you a gift to do something or not do something?
Yes, for every gift, remember you got to get over that first rule first, right? If the only reason you're getting the gift, no matter what it is, no matter who it's from, if the only reason you're getting it is because they want you to do something or not do something, even if it's a family member, you can't take it from them. Okay, so tokens of appreciation, wall plaques. And remember, gifts between state workers are not considered gifts. So as an agency or as a supervisor, you want to give an employee a gift, a token of appreciation. That's okay here too. That's not considered a gift.
Is there a dollar amount on that?
There's not, because it's a token of. Now, to some limit, right? Microsoft can't give you a yacht, but if you wanted to buy a plaque or some kind of decoration, sometimes those can be kind of spendy. They can be well over $50 sometimes, so there really isn't, but you can't go overboard either. It has to be reasonable. So, that's the $50 gift rule, and that's rule number 1. Now let's talk about the third rule. We have people that, well, all you guys are some type of regulators, right? Do you guys regulate supervised employees? You regulate students in some regard. Maybe you deal with contracts. So all of you guys are probably going to fall under the area of Section 4 employees. So this is what you might ask yourself if you wanted to figure that out. Are you employed by a regulatory agency or an agency that seeks to acquire goods or services? I think for the most of us, we can answer yes to that because we're always, trying to acquire services or goods or something like that. So we can say yes to that one. Does your agency regulate or contract with the person giving you the gift? Now we're starting to drill down a little bit, and now we're looking at the gift giver and our relationship with them. Does our agency contract with this person or the company this person is from, or do we regulate this person? Okay? Does our agency regulate them? And if the answer to that is yes, we ask ourselves the last question, did you participate? Did I participate in any regulatory or contractual matters with you, the person who's given me the gift? And if that's the case, then I can't take the gift, right? I'm a Section 4 employee. I can't take the gift, okay? You guys have questions on that? This seems to be the one that creates a lot of questions. Yes?
From my understanding in the past, if the vendor sends you a box of candy, Christmas is on, you put it out in the break room and everybody can have a piece of candy.
It depends on your relationship with the vendor. So if, and the location of where you put it. Now the break room may not be the right answer. Putting it out in an open common area would be a better way to take care of that. Again, if you did that, you're probably not ever going to get in trouble from the board by doing that. The main thing is you can't keep it yourself. And gifts can be given to agencies, right? So if the gift was given to an agency or a group within the agency, that's not to an individual, and the board has no jurisdiction over that. We have jurisdiction over people. So if the gift is given to you directly, then you have to know how you can, if you can take it, and then if you can't, how to give it back.
I don't know the distinction between like agencies. In this case, it's maybe somebody you've done business with, but they're not sending it to you.
Yeah, so if they're not sending it to you as an individual, they're sending it to you as from to the agency, addressed to the agency, then that's a gift that we have no jurisdiction over, and you can, remember the gift belongs to the agency though, not you as an individual. So depending on what it is, you might be able to put it in a break room, or you might have to donate it, or you might have to do something else to take care of that. Yes?
So we have a lot of international students coming in. We contract with certain travel agencies that refer students to us. And when they come to visit, part of their culture is to bring it's usually a token, like a little Chinese fan, or a ceramic, or a pen, or something like that. So we are Section 4 by these things. And these things are typically, you could say, well, we're accepting them on behalf of our agency or college. But according to the letter of the regulation, do you have some?
Yeah, I would say that if you fall within that regulatory contractual between that person, then you can't take those things. I mean, if they can give them to the college, and you display them in the college display box someplace, or you can keep them maybe in a display on your desk or your office, but they can't belong to you. Meaning, when you go home, you can't take it home. When you retire or leave college, it has to stay here at the college.
What if the fan had the name of the not the name of the school, but the name of the agency they contract with?
Then it could be a promotional item. Yeah. So then you can start looking at, okay, is this a promotional item? So there's, if you guys get creative. And I'm not saying that you try to violate the rule, but if it's a promotional item, we know that promotional items are not gifts, right? So that's maybe, if it's got a name of a company on it, then you might say, hey, that's a promotional item.
So those types of things wouldn't fall under the tokens of appreciation?
They could fall under tokens of appreciation too. Tokens of appreciation are kind of those things that, it could be the little fan, but it couldn't be anything really expensive. So the little fan, the little tokens, like you said, those might be okay.
Yeah, I think that we would generally, these aren't things that you want.
That's one of the things too, right? We're gonna talk about promotional
And they aren't even things that we would display very much.
Yeah, so-
Taken because it's polite to take them.
Exactly. And so if somebody were to complain on that, we would look into those facts. I mean, every case is, the facts are going to be a little bit different. So we would look into that. Maybe if somebody filed a complaint with us, and we would real easily be able to determine, no, that's not the intent of the gift rule. Okay, that falls under. It wasn't given to you to try to influence you to do something or not do something. It was just part of maybe a tradition from the student, or a token of appreciation or something like that. Yes.
Along the same lines of what David is saying, what about meals? Because it is culturally appropriate when we are overseas. If we are having a meeting with one of these people we contract with and they purchase our meal, to say no is extremely disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
So now the meal's not over $50. Not that it matters, but.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're in that relationship, that Section 4 relationship. So how do you handle that? Well, you can't accept the meal and not violate the law. Now, the rule says if you don't pay anything for it, it's a gift. So if you offer to pay for it, the meal, then you can eat the meal. Okay, and I don't know if that is going to create any more problem. If you offer to pay for it, you might find yourself in that same bad feeling situation. But those are things that maybe we have to deal with. Because if you accept that meal and somebody files a complaint, it could be a violation. The board could look at that as a violation. So the best thing to do is at least offer to pay for it. And if you can't, I would just make sure that it gets documented very well, that you understood that it was going to be a violation, but you didn't feel like you could get out of it without causing some real heartache. And you offered to pay for it. They didn't pay. Not that any of that's going to matter in the end, but at least if the board looks at that, those are all mitigating factors that the board will look at. So you want to make sure that sometimes you're in those situations where you just have to make a decision and go with it. Couple questions, right back here first.
Okay. So what if we're in the Career Center. We've not had this before, but what if an employer wanted to bring in sandwiches for the staff as a token of appreciation?
Well, that's a good question. In our office, we had Jimmy John's. You guys know who Jimmy John's is? Every now and then they'll drop by the office and they'll drop off a bunch of samples of sandwiches, and that's okay. As long as it's not to one individual, it's to a group of people that's similar to a gift to the agency versus a person. Yeah. Okay, right here.
So what about tokens of appreciation from students to faculty? And what's floating in my head, I had a faculty at the end of spring quarter bring in a box which he handed to me and said, here, and inside were 2 bottles of wine. So it goes to the foundation or somewhere, I'm not quite sure, I just haven't done anything with it, but what are the rules around that?
Well, again, you have to realize that that's a Section 4 relationship with the student and the instructor, right? So really that would be a gift violation as well. Tokens of appreciation, really when you think of tokens of appreciation, that's things that are maybe from agencies or a group like maybe the Lions Club or some group, not an individual. So if it's an individual giving you that token of appreciation, you really have to, if you're in that Section 4 relationship, you have to be a little leery about taking it. And I don't know if 2 bottles of wine, if that's over $50. My guess is if it's wine of any good, it's probably over $50, maybe not.
That's why he brought it to me, and he wasn't in a place where he could return it to the student
Right.
because.
So yeah, we're going to talk in just a minute about how to deal with those gifts that you get that we probably shouldn't keep, and that's probably one that we shouldn't keep, but we should deal with. Yes.
I was just going to say, sometimes we need to be really careful about ethics and internal controls, especially in the gift area. Sometimes there's problems where we'll buy a gift if it's under $50 and think it's okay, but that's an ethics thing. That's not an internal control item. You're violating internal controls. It may be okay for ethics, but it's not for internal controls.
Very good point. Ethics or policies can be a lot stricter than the ethics law. So you have to. So just because you didn't violate the ethics law doesn't mean you still haven't violated your policy. So it's very important that you understand what your policies are, because the ethics laws are kind of guidelines to writing policies regarding ethics, right? So agencies can, if they want to, they can make them a lot stricter than the law, but they can't make them less strict as the law. So good point. Okay, where are we at on gifts? Are we okay? And I think, oh, we're gonna, it's actually gonna work pretty good for me here maybe.